Welcome to the Fish North Georgia podcast, where we talk everything fishing here in North Georgia.
Make a cast over that brush pile and bring wolf packs of spotted bass up.
Georgia is blessed with so many of these electric-only lakes.
No, I didn't say that, Danny. Don't be speculating now.
All right, guys, on this episode, we've got Kennesaw State representing in the house today, Mr. Garrett Guinan. How you doing?
Good. Glad to be here.
You fish with Kennesaw State, and what we want to do on this podcast is we want to bring to light the college aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we haven't covered anybody that. So you're going to be our guide into the world of college fishing.
All right.
So, but we're going to go back to the beginning and get started. Kind of tell us just a little bit, your upbringing, how you got started fishing, just kind of that kind of stuff.
So my dad started me off when I was probably 4 years old. Like I was, telling you before we started, I really don't remember the first time I went fishing.
Right.
I've been fishing that long.
Right.
One of the first.
Now, how old are you?
I'm 20 now.
20, so not that long.
Not that long.
You got to realize I'm like grandfather age now, so okay, I got you.
Been fishing a long time relative to me.
Right, there you go. So, always in Georgia?
Always in Georgia, Alabama. I've kind of dabbled in, Tennessee and some areas around here. But, primarily North Georgia, Allatoona, Lanier, Carter's, those lakes.
And I would say like a family thing. Your dad got you started?
Yeah, my dad's into it. My mom tolerates it.
There you go.
So, they've been really, really supportive of me and, all my efforts going into it.
And how long have you had basically the desire to tournament bass fish?
I think it probably started when I was 7 or 8.
Okay.
I remember watching the Elite Series, Bassmaster Elite Series on TV, and man, just wanted to go out there and be like those guys out there and run around a rat boat and chase bass for a living. So.
I got you. And by looking at the jersey, you're well on your way.
Yeah,
like that, so
I'm trying to. It's hard work, but
okay. So how about the first time you ever seriously, fished a tournament? Can you remember that?
The first big tournament I ever fished was my freshman year, and I fished a.
Now, this is high school?
High school,
Okay,
yep.
And where'd you go to school?
I went to Lassiter High School.
Lassiter.
Yep.
Okay.
Marietta, Georgia.
Absolutely. I'm aware of that one. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
good. So first tournament.
It was on Lake Guntersville
Okay.
in Alabama, and that was the first time I'd ever fished a tournament on Guntersville, one of the first times I'd ever fished there. And we fished an Airport Marine High School tournament out there and came in 6th. And I was... I've fished tournaments before that, small stuff, local stuff. But, we never really fished tournaments. I was always pretending to be fishing in them, and stuff like that. But, we got out there and, did really good. And, man, it lit a fire under me. And, we fished that for the next 4 years and, had a great time doing it.
Now, compare high school fishing to college real briefly.
In some aspects, the high school stuff is bigger than college now. I mean, they're drawing, 450 boats in some of these tournaments. But,
right.
The high school stuff is really cool because you get to spend time with the boat captain. He can kind of pour into you and, kind of lead you in, the direction that you're going for, throughout the day.
Right.
And then, the college aspect, you do have to grow as a fisherman and, kind of branch out into, you branch out into your own styles and stuff like that. And, you learn how to think for yourself. Even just the biggest difference for me was just driving to the tournaments.
Oh, really?
I never had to drive. My dad was always driving. So
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, it's fatiguing whenever you're driving. You got to worry about all the stuff, your equipment, and, it's just a whole different aspect to it. So
you had to grow up.
Had to grow up.
You had to grow up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before we get really into the college thing, you mentioned to me that you were in a club called Marietta Bassmasters.
Yes, sir.
So tell me a little bit about that.
So Marietta Bassmasters, I think we started that maybe 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay.
It was one of my, I guess around my freshman or sophomore year. It was through the Marietta Bassmasters Adult Club.
Okay.
And we really that was one of the first, high school and middle school. We had both aspects of it. And we got it started in, the metro area, and it grew really quickly, and we had a lot of members and, a lot of success just through our high school tournaments and all that stuff. So,
At what point in your high school days did you say, I think I can do this on the college level?
I fished a tournament on Lake Mitchell in Alabama on the Coosa River. Mm-hmm. And it was the Airport Marine High School Trail, and we came in 2nd in that tournament. And the competition of that trail is superior. I mean, you have 85% of those guys' dads are either pro or know a pro, or, I mean, they are good. They are a different breed over there. And when we realized, we could go over here, fish on just a day of practice and, do really, really well, it was kind of like, I think I can do this.
So you were fishing against what we call sticks.
They were sticks.
You were fishing against
They
the
were
sticks.
certified hammers.
Hammers. Okay, that's a good way to put it too. Okay, so you're thinking, okay, now I can do this on a college level.
Mm-hmm.
So tell everybody what that's like. Did you look for schools, or were schools looking for you? How did that play out?
I wasn't really looking for schools. I was more focused on kind of just, I wanted to go to school,
Right.
locally. I wanted to stick around here. And, Kennesaw, they had a great fishing team. I knew a lot of the guys who had been on it in years past, and I was able to jump right in with them and get started. We don't offer the scholarships or anything like that, but we do have a good, platform to go fishing. And, it's been really good.
Okay, so that was what I was going to ask you next. So when you said no scholarships, so basically it's just like you're going to get education. And is this like not intramural, of course, but just a club aspect?
It's a club sport.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more than just a club, but it's not quite like, a full athletic sport at the school. So
Okay.
we get some funding, we get, some time off to go and fish, and but we don't get like the academic scholarships and stuff like that.
Okay, so you made it up in your mind, I want to go to Kennesaw. Now, you said that it was an existing thing.
It was.
Now, how long has it been?
I think it started in about 2011 or 2012,
Yeah, because-
right when it started.
Right, on the grand scheme of things, still college fishing is relatively new.
Relatively new, within the last 10 to 12 years, yeah.
Okay, and what attracts somebody, to fish in college? It just, they love the sport before they get there, or,
A lot of the guys that I talk to just want to fish in college. They
Right.
see it, they hear about it, they just want to go and do it. We have a lot of guys who, are on the team that, this is some of their first tournaments. Some of the guys, they go and jump in the back of the boat with us, and they just, they really just, they get bit by it, so they just want to get out there and go fishing.
I got you. So is it something that anybody can do?
Oh yeah, it's open to anybody.
Open to anybody
All
in
you got to
school.
do is have an interest.
Have an interest. Okay, now I'm going to ask you this, though. Still at the end of the day, you're Kennesaw State.
Yep.
Okay, so you're going against other colleges.
Yeah.
And like my oldest, and she went to, and my youngest, he goes now to Young Harris. And I think Young Harris is supposed to have been pretty good. I haven't kept up with it like I am now. So
Yeah.
you guys trash talk each other when you get out there amongst each other?
Oh, you know it.
No, I'm being very serious.
Oh, you know it.
If you're watching a college football game, they're talking about beating their mothers and stuff like that. Tell me about it on the fishing trail.
Man, we all talk trash, and it's I consider it a big extended family, because we're all good friends. When we're on the water, we're competitors.
Right.
We're out there to win, and that's what I try and tell all my guys on my team. It's like, listen, we're here to win. Get it in your mind.
All right,
But when you get off the water, then we can have some fun.
Okay, well, give me some examples. Come on, spill some dirt on some teams that you just don't like, or you like to rag. How about that?
I really like to rag on Bethel.
Bethel. Okay,
Bethel.
where are they out of?
They are out of, I can't remember where they're out of. I think they're out of Kentucky.
Okay.
And they're a big school, got a lot of sponsors and stuff like that. And it is so good whenever you can roll up in there and weigh a bigger bag than them.
Just want to beat Bethel.
Just want to beat Bethel.
Okay, there's got to be somebody else. I'm going to spill some dirt. Let's go.
Bethel and Bryan and all these, the bigger fishing schools.
Okay, what are the bigger fishing schools?
There's about 5 of them.
Okay.
So one of them is Bethel. They're out of Kentucky. Another one is Bryan. They're up kind of around Lake Chickamauga. Adrian College, I think they're up there in like Minnesota or something like that. I don't know the specifics of the school.
Right.
Carson Newman up there in close to Lake Cherokee. See, I don't know the towns they're from. I just know the lakes.
Right.
And then there's a couple more really good ones.
But I noticed you're wearing the dugout hat.
Oh yeah,
And you mentioned Carson Newman.
Got to support my guys at the dugout.
Yeah, but Carson Newman, that's his kids, right? His daughter and
Yeah.
his son go there. That's what we hear through the grapevine. But I noticed in what you're saying, it's a lot of, I don't hear the Georgias, Tennessee, the big schools.
Yeah. Well,
why is
it's
that?
funny. It's a lot of the fishing schools are the smaller private schools, and
Right.
some of that might be the funding and stuff like that. But it's just, I think the college fishing is really taking off with the smaller schools.
Okay, something that everybody can do, even play in field and stuff like that.
And some of that might be they don't have as much, as many athletics and stuff like that. So, they can pour a little more money into the fishing team. I think a lot of it's just funding based. So, I know some really, really talented anglers that go to Georgia and Tennessee and, some of these other universities that don't have, the fishing team set up. But,
Right. So how do you network, though? Do you network with other schools?
I
Do
do.
you people know each other?
Mm-hmm. We all kind of know each other just through fishing, the tournaments and stuff like that. We exchange phone numbers and follow each other on social media. Social media is the biggest thing. I mean,
Right.
We just kind of keep an eye on how everybody's doing. And, it's like, we get on the road, we kind of say, hey, how's the fishing over there? What you catching them on?
Yeah.
And you can kind of piece information together and get an idea of what everybody's doing.
Now, let me ask you now. Let's be honest. I'm from Bethel.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm calling you up. Are you going to give me everything you got?
No.
Nah, that's what I thought.
No. We'll probably send you a little bit of false information.
There you go. That's what I was going to say. Are you going to send me to the other side of the lake? Okay, I get it. I absolutely understand that. Well, okay, for somebody that's in high school and they're listening to this and they're like, okay, I want to do it. What about your boat, your equipment, your stuff like that? Pretty much your responsibility. That's the expense you can incur.
It is under if you're going to a school that doesn't quite have the big fishing team.
Right.
Now, that's not to say that you can't show up in, a boat that's $5,000 and, just kind of, just an entry-level boat.
Right.
Boat doesn't matter. It's
Okay.
all fishing skill.
Right.
And, the thing I love about college fishing is it's not quite like the pros when everybody's got the $80,000 rig.
Uh-huh.
You can go, you got guys in a $90,000 boat, you got guys in a $4,000 boat.
Right.
But the guys in a $4,000 boat might just win it.
I've seen that happen
Mm-hmm.
more than you think. What about, though, the sponsors that you guys got on your jersey?
We really rely on sponsors a lot. It's important to our program. We get a lot of donations and funding from them, and they've really helped us out with a lot of gear discounts and stuff like that to help us get out there on the road and go fishing.
So is it safe to say that when you get a sponsor, the money goes to the team and not the individual fisherman, or does it go to the individual fisherman?
It goes to the team.
To the team.
Yep.
Okay, so and I'm just throwing. You've got Costa on there. If Costa were to help you, they're helping Kennesaw State.
They are helping Kennesaw State,
not Garrett per se.
Not Garrett. Nope.
Okay, so that do you have a boater and non-boater? Like if you have somebody that wants to do it, they don't have a boat.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Same situation, kind of like that.
Yeah. So we usually try to keep a fairly even balance of say we have 12 guys. 12 guys with boats, we'll have 12 non-boaters. So
Gotcha.
Everybody can kind of get paired up with someone who, has a boat and they can go fishing and have the opportunity to do so. And they go to, not everybody fishes every one of the tournaments. So it kind of gets sprinkled out a little bit. Some guys will say, hey, do you have a partner to go fish over here? Well,
Right.
No, I don't. Well, hop in the boat with me and let's go. So
Okay, that was my next question. How do you decide who fishes what tournaments?
So in our program anyway, it's pretty much by personal discretion. So you can go fish whatever you want to. You can drive across the country if you want. It's really just as far as you can take it as far as you want to go, or keep it as close to home as you want. So we don't really have something that's saying, oh well, no, you can't go all the way
So
out there.
there's nobody like you are the president of Kennesaw State's bass club right now. So come a tournament time, anybody can go to that tournament. You don't decide, okay, well, the top 4 teams in our club's going.
No, I don't. And
Okay.
actually, I encourage everybody to go.
Okay.
Because I want the most boats from Kennesaw State there. I want our team represented well, and I want to see everybody do well. So
Okay, is there a points championship for the entire school, like, something like that, or is it mostly just the individual teams?
it's mostly individual teams. We do have a points championship throughout the different trails. Like Bassmaster has a college points race, and FLW has a points race. And there's another School of the Year points race through the ACA, which is the Association of Collegiate Anglers.
Right.
And they have that School of the Year race, and we try to fish hard throughout all the tournaments to do go and do well through that, because it does give the school some good publicity. Right. And it's important to us.
Okay, so I've got your schedule here in front of me. So before we get into it, I want to do one last thing.
Okay.
I'm a kid in high school, and I'm thinking, I would really like to fish high school. I really would like to fish in college. Maybe one bit of advice you could give them to prepare them in high school for fishing in college.
Be versatile.
Be versatile.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Be versatile.
explain.
In college, there are so many different events on so many different bodies of water. You got to break out of that comfort zone. Well, all I do is flip a jig. You
Right.
got to get out of that. You got to be able to pick up the finesse rod and go finesse them if we're going to a Smith Lake where it's really clear and, you can see 20 feet down and you're chasing spotted bass, or if you're going down to Seminole or Kissimmee or something like that, you got to be able to pick up the big rod and flip a 65-pound line and a 2-ounce weight into a mat.
Right. Okay. All right. So that's some good stuff. That's good advice right there. So be versatile.
Be versatile.
Okay. Let's get to your schedule here.
All right.
All right. So I'm looking at these. We're going to talk about the February 7th tournament, FLW College Series Southeastern Conference on Lake Seminole.
Yes, sir.
Lake Seminole. What are you looking to do? What kind of lake is that?
Seminole is a big-time grass lake. So
Okay.
by grass lake, I mean it's got every kind of grass down there that you can. It's got Kissimmee grass, hyacinth mats.
Now we're talking South Georgia or mid
South Georgia,
Okay.
Florida, Florida, Alabama line down
Right.
there. So it's pretty far south. It's the closest taste of Florida fishing that we have in the state.
Okay.
And that tournament will be won either on a chatterbait or a rattle trap.
You already know it.
Already know it. And it's going to be won somewhere on a grass line, fishing submerged hydrilla.
Okay. Now, have you ever fished it?
I have fished down there.
How'd you do?
We did pretty good.
Okay. So is this a regular stop on your trail?
It is. We've gone. I think FLW's gone there about every year as long as I've been fishing. So
Okay,
it's a regular stop.
What's your biggest bag down there?
I think we had about 18 pounds.
18 pounds. Five fish, all largemouth, I
fish,
assume,
all-
down there. Is that a shallow lake or a deeper kind of lake?
It is a shallow lake. It's pretty deep in the channel. It's full of stumps, so it's pretty hard to navigate.
Okay.
But if you take the fear factor out of it, it's not too bad. So.
Okay, I got you. All right, February 27th. Looks like your Bassmaster College Open on Smith Lake, which you just mentioned. So you said that was a clear, deep water lake.
That is I think it's one of the deepest lakes in Alabama.
It's in Alabama, okay.
It's like 350 feet deep. It's if you could compare it to Carter's Lake here in Georgia.
Really? Okay.
It's got herring in it. And, that lake, I mean, it's polar opposites. So you go from Seminole, which is going to be, a pre-spawn bite, to, Smith, which is going to be, a late winter, maybe early pre-spawn. It really depends on how the weather is.
Right.
And you're going to need to be chasing those herring around.
So you got to be versatile in the first two.
Oh, yeah,
in
right
first
off the bat.
tournaments. Okay, and you have fished there before.
I fished there.
Okay, what was your biggest bag there?
Oh, not too much.
So you're versatile, just not too versatile right now?
Not too versatile yet. I figured out what not to do.
Okay, there you go. What not to do? What do you not do?
You don't go drag a jig in 35 feet of water the whole
Okay,
tournament.
all right.
Gotta downsize a little
Got to
bit.
downsize a little bit. That's good advice. March 14th and 15th, Bass Pro Shop, Big Bass Bash. Don't want to
Yes.
say that too fast. The Bass Pro Shop's Big Bass Bash on Kentucky Lake. And I hear Kentucky Lake mentioned all the time in fishing circles. So very popular lake.
Very popular.
Okay, what kind of lake is that?
That is a Tennessee River Lake all the way.
Okay.
That is, I don't have that much experience on Kentucky Lake, so that's kind of mine. That's, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to go and do there.
Okay, so are we still talking spots, largemouth, or
That is
smallmouth?
primarily going to be largemouth. Smallmouth might play a little bit because it's still going to be cool, but you got to throw in the Asian carp factor in there too, because
Okay.
Asian carp, have. I mean, I'm not saying they've wrecked the fishery, but it has had a negative impact out there.
Okay,
So,
and how has it done it?
they've eaten a lot of the bait. And just what I've heard is, it's just there's kind of a lack of bait. And, if you take the bait away, it wrecks the whole food chain.
Right.
So, you can't go and scan a ledge, looking for bass anymore. It's, you find 10,000 carp. So you kind of got to, fish your way through it more and, kind of break it down that way instead of, just.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, we're talking about those crazy ones that fly up in the air and you drive by. Have you ever experienced any
I
of that?
have not experienced them personally, and I hope I don't have to.
You going to take a helmet when you drive that lake?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. That's interesting. March 25th, 27th, Bassmaster College Open, Lake Hartwell. Now,
I'm excited for that one.
okay, now let's talk about Hartwell for a minute.
Hartwell, well, and that one, that tournament's really going to be a shallow water deal, I think. I think you're going to be, need to be in anywhere from 15 to 5 feet of water, maybe less. Probably throwing a chatterbait around some, skipping docks with like a Nico rig or a jig or something like that. I think that'll be a full-on pre-spawn tournament, and I think they're going to be pushed back in the pockets. So hopefully we can go and catch them that way.
Okay.
There's always the chance you could go and catch them deep, but
You got a lot of experience on Hartwell?
I don't have a ton of experience. I have a lot of experience chasing herring fish.
Okay.
And that is how that lake sets up. And, it's going to be, it's chasing herring fish in the morning, then you go looking for 5 big largemouth in the afternoons once the sun's up.
Which brings up a good point. We'll get to the rest of these shortly. On a lake that you got no experience on, or very little experience, how do you rely on information? Where do you get your information to make your plans for that tournament?
I look for a lot of the fishing reports in that area. I try and go and add myself onto the various Facebook groups.
Right.
Like, say there's a Lake Guntersville fishing page on Facebook. I'll go and add myself in that group, and I'll just look and see what the guys are catching them on, and just kind of what the current state is, and that usually helps me go and, kind of pick it apart. And, also doing a lot of map study, Google Earth, stuff like that. I even break out the old paper map. And, I guess that's kind of an old school aspect, for a college angler.
Absolutely,
but, it really helps, like, because, there's some stuff on a paper map that doesn't show up on Navionics or Lake Master or something like that, in your units. So, I kind of cross-reference the two and just really study the lake and try and pick a couple key areas that I like before I can go there. And that way I can section off the lake whenever I go and practice it. So, I don't waste my time because you do have a limited amount of time. It's usually 3 days that you got to go and figure out the lake.
And that's not a lot of time.
No, that's not enough.
But it's pretty interesting, the old school maps, because I am old enough to remember when that was it. You know, if you want to know where a ledge or a creek was, you had to unfold. Everybody had the map in their boat.
You got to fold it out. And
you youngins don't know nothing about that. It's all computers. So it's nice to, to hear you say, yeah, I fold that map out every once in a while because that's a lost art, I promise you, these days. So that's pretty interesting. April 24th, FLW College Series on Guntersville. Now, that's a big one, too.
That's a big one.
Okay.
I think that's going to take a lot of weight to win. I think those fish are going to be on full-on bed mode then. Some of them might
in Tennessee, though, right? Just above
that's
the line?
in Alabama.
Alabama. See, okay,
that's over there, kind of close to Guntersville, Alabama.
What was I thinking? It's Chickamauga.
Chickamauga.
See, I'm old now. I just got so Guntersville's in Alabama. Largemouth on this one, I imagine.
Yep.
Now, how are you going to go after them?
I think we're going to go try to find some spawning fish still.
Yeah.
We might be able to find some that are just now pulling out on the ledges. A lot of it depends on whether the weather's warm or not, because sometimes we can get some 85-degree days in April and it'll push them offshore. Or it might stay cool and, they can be just, some of the first or, kind of middle waves of the spawning fish going out. So, we really, really depend on the weather just to kind of dictate what we're going to be doing.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Spawning fish, bedfish. You're in a tournament. Fair game?
Fair game.
Fair game.
Yep.
No question whatsoever. And is that pretty much the thought throughout everybody?
So I'm not a huge fan of picking them off the bed, but to win the tournament, you're going to have to do it.
And you think this might be a tournament?
I think so.
Like that. Okay, so let's just. What would be your favorite technique if you rolled up on a bass on bed? What you pitching in there?
I really like pitching a white big bite baits fighting frog in there.
Oh,
I can
really?
see it good, and it kind of agitates the fish in there. I like pitching white, light colors, or throwing a like a trick worm, like a pink or something like that. It's just something I can see. Something I can move kind of slow because what you want to see is the bait suck, the bass suck your bait in.
Right.
That's what's showing you the strike and, how basically just how it's going to go.
Well, that's interesting, though, that you pick your color for your eyes, not so much the fish's eyes.
No, and, the springtime is one of the few times that you can do that.
Right.
Because, the fish is just focused on getting the whatever's on the bed off of there.
Just want it out of there.
And a lot of the strikes you get are going to be a defensive strike. So
that is very interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but that's a good tip right there. So that's the tip of the week right
all
there.
Right.
All right. So May 6th and 8th, Bassmaster College Series, Lake Cumberland.
Cumberland? I have never been to Cumberland.
Now, is that Tennessee?
That is Kentucky.
Kentucky. See,
Yep.
I don't know these lakes.
We're all over the place.
That's what I'm saying. I've got to learn all these. Josh, you're going to have to add a whole bunch of stuff. I sound like a dummy tonight. So. But no, really. Okay, so Cumberland, you've never fished there.
I have not fished Cumberland. I know how Cumberland sets up.
Okay.
And it sets up relatively similar to some of the lakes that we have around here. There's a lot of bluff rock, and there's a lot of, like, some, shallower feeder creeks and stuff like that. So I know smallmouth are going to play big in there. We'll probably, get on those bluff walls and throw a worm and stuff like that. And, I don't know if those fish are still going to be spawning then or not. There probably won't be. So we'll probably be looking for, a shad spawn or something like that. And depending if the water's up in the buck brushes, probably throw a swim jig and stuff like that as well.
Okay, on May 21st, 22nd, Boat U.S. Collegiate Championship on Lake Pickwick.
Yes, sir.
All right, tell me a little bit about that lake.
Pickwick, that is a Tennessee River lake. It is over close
Finally
to...
a lake in Tennessee. I keep saying Tennessee.
It's in Alabama, too. So.
Okay, all right, well, I got it partially right. So, all right.
Yeah, so that one will definitely be a ledge tournament. We fished that this last summer, and that was, one of my first experiences ledge fishing.
Yeah, explain to everybody ledge fishing.
So ledge fishing is when in the summer of the year, the fish pull out of the feeder creeks, where they've been spawning, and they pull out to the ledges, which is just a river ledge or any kind of deep drop-off, deep structure on the main river channel. It doesn't have to be the main river channel. It's just any kind of deeper structure.
But most of the time, it's on that main river channel.
Most of the time, it's on the main river channel.
Now, when you say this, and I'm going to let you finish, I don't mean to interrupt you, but if I drive up through Tennessee, I don't know which, going up above Chattanooga on my way to Kentucky. Mm-hmm. I've made that trip going hunting with some buddies several times, and we cross a river. Like, it just basically looks like it's a cliff, like just rock wall straight down. Mm-hmm. So I imagine that goes straight down in the water, and that's a ledge. That's what you're talking about, or
that is. But the best way to kind of picture it is if you're looking out over like a food plot or something like that.
Okay.
And you got a creek running right through it.
Right.
And it drops off real sharp right there in that creek and then comes back up. That is a ledge.
I like the deer hunting reference like that, the food plot with the creek. Very good.
Well, that's how it is. They're going to be on the edges of the food plot.
Absolutely. Now, I like that. That's a very good reference. Okay, so how do you target a fish on the ledge? And this is in May, so...
You really have to do a lot of scanning with your electronics. And by scanning, I mean idling up and down the ledges, looking on your electronics. You're looking for fish on the ledge. You're looking for bait and stuff like that. And it can be intimidating because there's miles and miles of ledge to go and look at. So you really have to utilize your time wisely and pick the areas like in front of the feeder creeks where you envision that the fish are going to be coming out from.
Okay.
So whenever you find them, and, they're a school that's just pulled out, you can about throw anything in them. So a big crankbait, a big spoon, a big jig, something to get down there in the current. But when they get a little finicky, later on in the summer, because it's really popular fishing now with how electronics are now, you can get out there really easy and find them.
Right.
So, you got to downsize, you got to throw a drop shot some, shake your head, something natural that is, those pressured fish are going to, key in on.
Yeah, that's a good point. Everybody can find them nowadays. It's catching them.
Catching them now. Mm-hmm.
That's the difference. Okay, so are you a senior this year?
I'm a junior.
You're a junior, so
Yep.
you got one more year into this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what are your plans after college?
I am really going to try and fish hard in the Bassmaster Opens or the FLW, BFLs, and some of these the little lower division tournaments.
Right.
I'm going to try and make a run at the tour if I can. I know there's a lot of stuff that I need to work on, before I can get there.
Right.
But we're just going to keep working at it.
Well, maybe we can help to make you famous before you get famous.
Yeah,
and you do
hopefully
that.
so.
But when do you start preparing for that? Like now? I mean, you're already in your mind?
I've been preparing for it since I was like 10 years old.
That's a good answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good answer. And the second you get out, do you just start fishing there, or can you start fishing some of this stuff during college?
I can start fishing some of it during college.
So
some
there's
of
no
it,
rules.
No,
like
there's no like, oh, well, you're 25 now. You got to go and fish all this stuff. You
Right.
can jump into it whenever you want to. It's whenever you're financially ready and you're experienced enough to go and get into it, and you're ready to go and dive into it.
And unlike other college sports, you can actually fish pro while you're in college doing that stuff, or is there rules? Kind of like a football player can't.
As far as I know, there's no rules. I know you can go fish. I'm pretty sure you can fish on the Elite Series and fish a college thing too. So.
Okay, that's interesting.
Don't quote me on that, but
Well, yeah, I don't want to get you in trouble with the NCAA, like that, but maybe there's not. Okay, so that's awesome. So in our talks, when we were talking about getting you down here, I kind of told you I wanted to know what your lakes were that you wanted to discuss and everything.
Yeah.
And you said Allatoona.
Uh-huh.
And I was so happy, and I'll tell you why. And the reason is, so far we are very Lake Lanier heavy.
Uh-huh.
A lot of heavy hitters on Lanier, a lot of people that are willing to talk to us, and we haven't been able to make the roads into Allatoona.
Mm-hmm.
So when you said, I'll talk about Allatoona, I was just like, Thank you, Lord. So for those that aren't familiar with Allatoona, let's give them a brief overview of the lake itself, and then we'll delve into it a little more specifically.
Okay. So it is a 12,000 acre lake. It is just north of Atlanta. It's probably closer. It's much closer to Atlanta than Lanier is.
Yeah.
It's heavily pressured. There's a lot of people that fish it. There's a lot of people that camp on it and, use it as just a recreational body of water during the summer. So, those fish are, they're pressured and they get a lot of boat traffic over them. And, but it is a good body of water. You shouldn't be led astray and think, it's the Dead Sea. There's a lot of fish in there. That's
all you hear when you say Allatoona, especially these Lake Lanier guys that go, that's the Dead Sea. But I catch fish in it every time I go. Now, I don't always catch the biggest fish, but I do catch fish in Allatoona, so I know they're there. Now, are we talking spots, largemouth? What are we talking?
It is predominantly spots. There is a decent population of largemouth, but majority spots, yeah.
Is it like Lanier in that the south end of the lake is far different than the north, or pretty much the same?
Not really. It's about the same, across from the south end to the north end. There's not a huge population of largemouth, and they kind of get sprinkled out throughout the lake, really. I mean, you can go catch one in 60 feet of water on a top water in the summer, or you can go and catch one in 4 feet of water on a log. So,
Okay, how about the bait? What kind of bait we got talking about?
It is a predominantly shad. Some people talk about, maybe there might be some herring in here. I've yet to see it.
Okay.
And I'm out there a lot, but I'm keeping an open mind and, trying to watch and see if the fishing changes, if there is, there are some herring in there. And that'll change the fishing for sure.
Okay, so what are we talking about right now, though? Mostly threadfin?
Mostly threadfin.
Mostly threadfin, okay. And so predominantly spots. Now, let's just say you were taking somebody out on the lake right now for the first time. You want to get them a limit of fish. Where are you going at on Allatoona? And you don't have to be specific, I know, with your spot, but you going south, north, what do you do?
I'm probably going to run out into probably the south end of the lake.
Okay.
I'm going to look for any sunny banks, especially if it's in the morning. I'm going to crank shallow right now. Especially when the lake gets stained up, there's those fish go shallow. You can really, really catch them on a crankbait, square bill or something that runs about 8 feet deep.
Right.
And what you're keying on is rock transitions and shallow brush and stuff like that. So.
And is it a deep lake compared to Lanier and stuff like that?
It is a deep lake. It is. I mean, you can be off the bank in 80 feet of water, especially on the lower end, or up on the upper end, towards Bell's Ferry and I guess. Up there where the Etowah comes in, and it does shallow up. It's kind of silted in up there some, so the fishing up there is a little bit shallower.
Okay.
But you can really fish all aspects of it whenever you go out there.
Okay, so why do they lower that lake every year?
I'm pretty sure it's for flood control.
For flood control. Okay, so that's
and it's a big drawdown. I mean, it's
a very big drawdown.
It's 20 feet. So
I know that you can be at one day you can drive on 20 towards Stamp Creek, going towards Cartersville from Canton, and it looks like a nice, beautiful river kind of up in there. And you go a couple months later and it's mud. Yeah, and with like a 5-foot creek.
Yeah, right, a 5-foot little ditch going through there.
So would that be the food plot and the ledge? No, that's a very terrible analogy. But I mean, it's just silt though. It's just mud. It don't look like there's a lot of structure there.
There's not.
Okay.
And, so brush piles and stuff like that are really important out there to do well, especially during the summertime. In the summertime, those fish seek refuge in, brush and stuff like that, a little bit deeper, especially when the thermocline sets up. They're going to be sitting right on, if you put a brush pile in 25 feet of water, right, and the thermocline is at 26, well, that's your money brush pile, because those fish are going to sit right above that thermocline where the water's coolest, and they got all the bait above them. So
that's a good tip. So let's do this, because like I said, you're the first person we've had this talk to Allatoona. I'm gonna go seasonal.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me what you're gonna do.
All right.
So right now I would imagine we're dead winter as winter can be. So wintertime pattern right now for the next 3-4 weeks or a couple months
is going to be dictated by weather. Okay. So if the water is dirty, and which it is right now, we've had a lot of rain up here in North Georgia and stuff like that. So, the water's stained up. I'm going to go shallow. I'm going to be fishing at 10 feet or less on, rock transitions, like I said,
Right.
and, chunk rock banks. And there's a lot of that on that lake. I mean,
Yes, there's a lot.
of
Yes.
chunk rock.
That I noticed.
So there's a lot of, places for those fish to get on. What you have to figure out is where those fish are keying on and where the bait is.
Okay.
So, running around, trying a lot of different areas, hitting a lot of spots throughout the day is really the key to success. When the water clears up, you can slow it down. The fish will go a little deeper. They might suspend some more, 15, 20 feet. And that's where a jerk bait, spy bait, spoon, a floating fly, stuff like that comes into play.
Okay.
And so wintertime, it's going to be weather dictated.
Okay. Spring. We're talking March to, let's say, May.
So as we go from April to May, what you're going to be really wanting to key on is, shad spawn, and you're going to get into a little bit of a brim spawn too. Those fish will kind of key in on.
That's a good point right there.
They'll start keying in on brim. Some of them will be shallow. Some of them will be a little bit deeper, moving out towards the brush and, stuff like that. So it's really a time to be versatile and, cover a lot of ground, get out there early in the morning, try and find a shad spawn going on. As the day gets a little, a little bit later,
Right.
move out a little bit deeper and try and find where those fish are staging up, as they're moving out. Sometimes they'll stay, up shallow all day, and sometimes they'll move on out. So, again, you have to be versatile on Allatoona
Absolutely.
to be a successful fisherman.
All right. We're going into the dog days in the heat of the summer now. So June through, and even through the September.
So it's going to get tough. You have to just understand that it is going to get tough. You're going to have some days where, you might catch 25. It can be really good. You'll have a good topwater bite in the morning and stuff like that. But keying in on brush piles and, a little bit deeper points and stuff like that it's going to be important. And, finding especially green brush. Green brush is going to provide a little bit more, shade for those fish that are out there.
Right.
And it's going to be important to find that stuff.
Okay. Now, do you agree that maybe agree is not the right word? At which point in this so far we've covered winter, spring, summer, the thermocline in Allatoona? When are we going to get that?
You're going to start seeing a thermocline around the end of May, early June.
Okay.
Sometimes it can be a little bit later
June.
June.
And then when are we going to get the flip? Right about that same time, or?
You're going to get the flip in the fall of the year, and that's going to be usually after the first week or two of really cold weather.
Okay.
And that's going to cool off the water. About 55 is when I see, 65 to 55 is when you're going to start seeing that thermocline start to flip and you get the fall turnover.
Okay.
And that really spreads the fish out, makes it kind of tough to catch them.
So we get the setup in early summer, okay, and we've discussed summer. So now we're in the fall.
Yep.
So now I imagine that comes into play and how you going to fish in the fall.
I'm going to go shallow. I'm going to look for fish more towards the backs of the pockets.
Okay.
The shad go in the backs of the pockets because there's, usually we get some fall rains. And the backs of the pockets are going to get stained up. And the shad go back in there because there's a lot of food. There's a lot of plankton in the water and stuff like that. So they go and pull back in there, and usually the bass will follow them. So go back in there, throw a square bill, rattle trap, stuff like that, spinnerbait, just junk fishing really, and trying to catch those fish chasing that shad.
Okay, that's interesting. So I'm going to give you a rod and one bait that you can use on Allatoona year-round.
Okay.
It's the only rod, only bait you get. What you going to use?
I'm going to use a shaky head.
A shaky head. Just for versatility?
Versatility. You can use it in the winter. You can use it in summer. You can use it in the fall. It doesn't matter.
Okay, and what you throwing it on?
Like rod?
Yeah. What equipment you going to throw your shaky head on?
So I really like a G Loomis NRX.
Okay.
I like an 852 spinning rod for my shaky heads and stuff like that.
All right, so what length rod you throw?
It is a 7-1.
7-1.
7-1 medium. Usually a 20-pound braid, main line, and then a 8 to 10 pound leader.
And let me ask you this, because I always find it interesting, because every time I ask this, I get a different answer from people. What knot do you use from braid to fluoro?
I use the Alberto.
Okay, so you're Alberto. That's the second boat so far. LJ, Jim Harmon from Lanier, uses he throws Alberto when he talks.
Yeah.
The Alberto. Okay, kind of describe the Alberto.
So it is, it's just you wrap the line around it 7 times, and then you go back over it 7 times, and then
One of those.
run the line back through the loop that you made. And
Okay.
it's quick and easy.
Uh-huh.
I've mastered it, and I think whatever knot you can tie best is the knot that you need to be throwing.
But now, do you think that knot in and of itself use it for strength or use it for because it's just quick?
I use it because it's quick.
Because it's quick. You ever had one break off on you?
I have, and it stinks, but you just got to
Just one of those things?
tie another one back on.
Okay. All right. So let me take that same question, and I've got a rod and a bait that no way in the world do you want to throw. What is it? On Allatoona, year round. What's the one thing that you can't stand throwing on Allatoona?
Gosh, that's a really hard question.
It is
I
a
don't
hard
know
question.
I don't know if I have one that I'm just like, I don't want to do that.
Well, like a lot of people say drop shot, they don't even want to mess with a drop shot. Something like that. So I'll tell you how about your worst bait or your worst technique for you on Allatoona? Just one you haven't mastered. You see a lot of people catching fish.
It's
like,
probably going to be a Ned rig.
Listen, I love the Ned rig.
I have not played with the Ned rig mug.
Listen, I love it. You can't mess a Ned rig up. If an idiot like me can fish with a Ned rig, anybody
I know, maybe
can.
I overthink it. I don't know what the deal is, but I have not mastered that yet.
And what about it?
I think it's just I fish faster than I can let the thing fall.
Gotcha.
So
Okay, so you're not a finesse. You don't like finesse.
I like finessing, but I like power finesse. So I'll throw a quarter ounce shaky head and wait for it to hit the bottom. Drag it a little bit and then reel up and pitch it in another spot. But I can't do the throwing a Ned rig in there, waiting a minute and a half for it to hit the bottom. So
that's very true. I always ask people, and they either love the Ned rig or they hate it.
I
love it. I love it, but I still probably fish it too fast. But I do love it. But yeah, a lot of people, they don't like that Ned rig when it comes out.
No,
like that.
I'm not saying I won't ever throw it. It's something I need to work on, and I do throw it some now. So,
well, I wish you success with it because that's one thing I can catch a fish on is a Ned rig. When nothing else, is biting, I'll throw a Ned rig, and it just seems to work. Now, I didn't say to catch the biggest fish, but it will catch fish like that. So, you mentioned the float and fly. Okay, and I found that to be very interesting. And, we had talked maybe about doing a video on this in the future, and I'm looking forward to that. Explain to everybody what the float and fly is.
So the float and fly, if you can imagine, basically it's a really long, like you're throwing just a minnow rig. So you have a bobber, and it's going to have a countersunk weight, which is the weight. You take the bobber apart, you're going to put the weight in the middle so it lays flat on the water like this. When your fly goes and sinks down, it's going to tilt over.
Like a pencil float.
Like a pencil float.
Okay.
Exactly. So whenever you throw it out there, you use a long rod, usually at least an 8-foot rod, and it's a rod that they use a lot for chasing steelhead up in like Alaska. So it's really flexible. It's got a lot of bend in it, really parabolic. And you flip that float and fly behind the boat, let the fly hit the water, and then throw it to let it load up. And that's how you throw it. So it's kind of cumbersome. You got to have a technique-specific rod and all that stuff, but it really, really excels in the wintertime and when those fish get pressured.
Okay, yeah. So what are we targeting with that?
So you're going to be targeting, what you're looking for is whenever you throw your bait off the bank, you're wanting your bait to go and be in the depth of where the rock is.
Okay.
So I'm going to be looking at a 45-degree bank or a bluff or anywhere that those fish can go and suspend off of.
Okay.
So, when you go and throw it up there, you're chasing suspended fish. And
so you can vary the length of basically your leader or your line under the bobber.
Yep. And it's, it's a light line. It's 4 to 6 pound fluorocarbon.
So very finesse.
Very, very finesse.
All right. And what do we got on the end of this thing?
It looks like a crappie jig, but it's just a little marabou jig. You can do deer hair, you can do any kind of feathers on there. It just looks like a little shad, and it really excels in the wintertime whenever the shad start dying, and it just falls real nice and easy in front of those lethargic fish, and they'll just eat it up.
Okay, so once it's made its fall, let's just say it descends all the way. Now, are we working it back to the boat, or what are we doing?
You can kind of pull it back in just a little bit, but you're really keying in on that initial fall.
Okay.
So, you can leave it in there. Say, you leave it in there for maybe a minute and a half or so. You're going to pick it back up and throw it in there.
So you throw it out there, just let it sink, and if
Let
you
it
don't
sink,
get a bite, you take it back.
Pull it off the bank just a little bit, and you're watching that float, because what happens is sometimes you'll get a lift bite. And a lift bite is whenever a fish comes up and grabs your fly, and that bobber will just lay over like that.
Okay, so you're looking for the bobber to go flat or disappear.
Disappear
as
or
opposed
go
to,
flat, yep.
I remember sometimes when I was younger, I would throw a cricket out on a pencil float. And I would never have enough weight. So it laid flat to begin with, and it would pop up.
Yeah, and then it'd pop up and go
something's
down.
got it. So how popular is this technique?
It is very popular in like eastern Tennessee. It's gaining some traction around here.
Okay.
There's a lot of guys that throw it. There's not a lot of guys that talk about it. It's kind of one of those little sleeper techniques. It's something that, you do have to buy a specific rod for it. So, that might limit some guys from going out and, I don't want to go buy a rod for it. But whenever it is right, it is really, really hard to beat.
Really? Okay. Because this is the first time I've ever talked about it. Now, it kind of sounds similar to trout fishing in a way. That you got to fly way behind the bobber or the indicator and stuff like that. Whereas you're using the current in that, you want it to sink. You're just letting it lay right in front of that fish. Okay, so lake specific, fish specific. Like you can do this for spots and not largemouth, or what are we talking about?
Spots, largemouth, smallmouth, they'll eat it.
Okay.
They really need to be suspended for it to work well.
Okay.
And usually what I'll go and look for is I try to find fish that are suspended in the depth range that I'm going to be fishing at. So say if they're in 10 feet, I'll make a 10-foot long leader and try and get it to where, because you don't want your bait below the fish. You want it
Correct.
above them.
All right.
So say they're suspended in 15 and they can see up, 5 or 6 feet. So that's where, that's the depth range that you want your leader at. So you can catch them in 20 throwing a 10-foot long leader, or you can catch them in 5 or 6.
Now, wintertime only for this though, pretty much.
It is really wintertime, early spring. It's really when the shad are starting to die.
Can you do the same thing for crappie?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
you can catch some crappie on it.
So that's why I'm just sitting here thinking that might actually be a good technique for crappie fishing.
Oh yeah, you can throw it around a brush pile and stuff like that.
Just
and
maybe
catch some.
downsize, or are you talking about the same type of?
It's really a small fly, so you could downsize it, or you can. It's really versatile. You can do whatever you want to with it. So
Okay. That's awesome. We're going to do a video on that. We talked about it. Even if we just show the technique, it might be a little later on in the year. How long is this good for?
Really all winter long, as long as the water's cold.
So as long as we got some time here in the near future and it's
Yep.
cold, we can do it.
Yep.
Okay, so let's transition from Allatoona to another body of water that you mentioned you've got some experience in, and I find it interesting, and that's the Coosa River.
All right.
Okay, now the Coosa River entails a whole lot, so we're going to deal with a few specific sections of it. And kind of, I want your opinion on basically from Rome
Okay.
to the Alabama line. We'll start there because, now I'll tell you why, it's a selfish reason. One of the club trails we actually fish out of Brushy Branch, the Coosa River right there. I tell everybody this story. I'd never pre-fished it. I show up, all the boats are there, and I'm thinking, okay, well, this looks pretty good. It's still dark. Never been on it. Everybody takes off, and I'm like, well, this is a point right here. This looks good. So I'm throwing. Well, I'm in 2 foot of water. I didn't realize that the whole thing was 4 foot deep until you get out into the river. And so I'm kind of going to pick your brain a little bit about that section.
All
so
right.
let's start right there. From Rome to the Alabama line, if you were fishing the Coosa River, how would it go?
So I'm going to really be keen on current breaks.
Okay.
Current breaks are crucial in any type of river system. That's where those fish live, and a lot of it depends on how much water's moving through there. You're going to focus on stuff up on the bank and stuff like that. Rocks, and you're just looking for places where those fish can get out of the current and feed, and just stuff like that.
So are we talking mostly spots and largemouth there?
Mostly spots and largemouth. Lots of spots in there.
Lots of spots. Okay, all right. So now what's the first lake we're going to get to on the Coosa River?
So if you're following down from Rome, you're going to run into Weiss.
Weiss. Okay, tell everybody a little bit about Weiss.
So Weiss is a pretty big lake. It is full of stumps and really shallow, but there's a ton of big fish in there. It is, some of the best, probably some of the best fishing, around this area up here. It's totally different, from fishing on Lanier or Carter's or anything like that, because, it is a river system, has lots of water flowing through it, and the fish stay shallow there for the most part. They'll move out a little deeper, during the summer and stuff like that, but, it's really predominantly shallow water fishing.
Okay, so if you're taking off after them right now, we're loading the boat up and we're going out to Weiss tomorrow, what you doing?
I'm going to be trying to, again, just cranking shallow rock if I can find it, flipping shallow woods, stuff like that, just places that are going to hold some heat. They'll get around the docks and stuff like that. And, honestly, I'll be looking for docks that are going to have, some kind of metal on them, because metal will warm up a little bit faster than
Okay.
a
That's a good tip.
wood dock or something like that.
Right.
And especially like cranking the causeways and stuff like that, just places that are going to hold the heat. Shallow water fish are honestly more affected, I think, than deep water fish because the temperature variant is a lot more drastic in shallow water whenever you have a 30-degree night than it is going to be in 25 feet. So, it will affect those fish out there a little bit more. And, it is going to be current oriented. So you're going to be cranking, or fishing current and, just trying to, figure out a pattern, on that body of water.
Now, you say cranking, and you keep saying cranking. So, okay, I'm going to give you a cranking rod and a
All
bait.
right.
What are we cranking? What are we throwing?
I love Spro Little John.
Spro Little John.
Spro Little John.
Okay.
And this time of year, it needs to be red.
Needs to be red. And
Needs to be red.
we are copying what?
A crawfish,
Crawfish,
right now.
okay.
Crawfish right now.
And so I would imagine we're throwing pretty shallow.
Pretty shallow, yep. And what happens this time of year is the crawfish start to molt, and they'll turn different colors, brown and orange, or brown, or sometimes they'll get a little blue in them, and that crankbait really imitates that good. And when the water gets cold, I think those fish quit chasing shad as much, and I think it's just because the shad move faster, and it's that you kind of get a bite like that on a herring lake too. So you can kind of, you can reflect it to both types of lakes. So, that crawfish color bait is really, really good this time.
Yeah, I don't think people realize the importance of crawfish to a fishery.
Mm-hmm.
And especially to a fisherman.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in the wintertime, I'll be honest, I see some of these very funky looking crawfish, crankbaits and stuff like that. I'm like, man, I don't know what would hit those things, but they work. So like that. So the molt is pretty important to the crawfish, to the fishing. You also talk about pitching against stuff. Now, what are you pitching?
I really like pitching a jig this time of year.
Okay. Same coloring?
Same colors, yeah. Usually if you're fishing a crankbait or something like that, I'm going to be looking in the fish's throats a lot this time of year. I'm going to be looking for claws or, like claws off a crawfish or even a crawfish in one's throat. Sometimes like you put them in the live well and they'll spit up the color, and you really try to match that color, matching the hatch, of course.
Right.
And it's just I try to base my color choices off of those colors that you see.
Okay, that's good. Now you going from, I guess the Coosa comes out of Weiss.
Yep.
And where does it go?
Goes into Neely Henry.
Now, how far of a distance is that? What are we talking?
I don't know the specifics, but I think it's about 35 or 40 miles.
Okay. All right.
From the Weiss Dam all the way to the Neely Dam. It's a pretty good distance, especially by boat. So.
Okay, so between Weiss and Neely, same thing as similar to Rome?
Very similar, yeah. So you're going to be fishing current breaks and stuff like that, and it's going to be really similar patterns throughout both lakes. When you get on Neely Henry, you're going to find a little bit more. It's called willow grass. Some people refer to it as just Coosa grass or bank grass or stuff like that. And
now describe it for those that don't know.
So it's a really stocky grass. You see it growing along just the riverbanks, and it's in the summer it's going to be real green and lush. And this time of year, it's going to, if the water's pulled down, it may not be into play. But on like Neely Henry and those lakes that don't get drawn down too much, what'll happen is that grass will mat up, and you can go and flip a big weight in that grass, and basically what it does is it just holds the warmth.
Okay.
And those fish will just suck up right under it. It's like getting up underneath a blanket for you and I whenever it's cold.
Right.
So
makes perfect sense. All right. Now you had one more lake from Neely Henry to.
I think it's Neely to Logan. Logan Martin.
Logan Martin.
I told you the wrong one. Logan Martin.
Logan Martin. Well, that's fine because I don't know any of them. I'm lucky we're in the same state if you listened to me earlier. Okay, Logan Martin's pretty popular. I hear that a lot.
Logan Martin's really popular.
Okay, so give me your overview on Logan Martin. You fish it a lot, or?
I do fish it a lot. Logan Martin is a really, really good numbers lake. I don't know if there's millions of them in there. There's a lot of spotted bass that are anywhere from a pound to 2.5 pounds.
Okay.
And you can catch an occasional 3 to 4, even 5 pounder sometimes, especially in the winter. Those bigger fish just seem to bite better in the winter for some reason. And, it's going to be a lot of the same patterns, fishing points and stuff like that. Logan Martin is a little bit bigger lake. So it is still a river system, so current is going to play, and you're going to be trying to find the current breaks and stuff like that. But just finding the bait and just really breaking down that just where the bait is in relation to the points and structure and all that stuff.
Okay, so for those in North Georgia that they've kind of heard you and they're making plans to these lakes. So from here to Logan Martin, what kind of distance are we talking? We're Dawson County, so we're slap in the middle of North Georgia.
So you're probably looking at about a 2.5 hour drive.
So really, it's not that far.
No, it's not too far. It's just jump on I-20 West, and then you're at Logan Martin. So
okay, and Weiss is really just on the other side of Rome, pretty much like that. Okay, and you keep saying, so it seems to me that you're talking spotted bass heavy on all that whole section.
All these lakes are heavy on spotted bass.
Okay, but now they do have largemouth.
You have largemouth in them, and they're going to be. I mean, you'll be fishing down a bank and you'll catch 5 spots and then 5 largemouth right there.
Okay, so
especially the Coosa River spotted bass, they're going to be really similar to a largemouth as far as the structure they're going to be on. They're going to be shallow and just the ways that you can catch them this time of year.
All right, so you said the Coosa River or the Coosa spotted bass, Coosa River spotted bass. Is that different than say the spotted bass over here in Lake Lanier?
It is.
Okay, and why?
The Coosa River spotted bass, or Alabama bass, as they're known scientifically, it's a breed native to Alabama, and they rely heavily on current. And the main differences are that the Alabama spotted bass is going to get a lot shallower than spotted bass, say in Allatoona or Lanier.
Okay,
and
do they suspend kind of like they do?
They do, but they really like to be tucked up against structure.
Okay.
So if you can imagine fishing in a stream for trout, how a trout is going to be behind a rock.
Absolutely, yes.
That is how an Alabama spotted bass is going to be.
Okay, so they're not as I guess they will suspend out in the middle, offshore, but typically you find what you're saying.
Typically, you find them up against structure. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, that's interesting. So, of the 3 lakes that you just described, what's your favorite?
I really like Neely Henry.
Okay, and why?
I like Neely Henry because it's more of a river system.
Okay.
And lately I've been just really trying to break that lake down and figure out how to catch them on, in a lake that's really, just mostly river. So if you're going up and down the bank, there's not a huge bay over here on your right or a huge bay on your left. It's just going to be little pockets and stuff off the river. And that's how I've been, just trying to break it down and figure out how to catch those river fish better.
Okay, and your favorite lake that you of all time that you get to fish? You get one lake to fish for the rest of your life. Where are you going?
I think I'm going to go to Lanier.
Really?
Yep.
It's a good lake.
I love Lanier.
It's a good lake. Real quick, if you're fishing Lanier right now, what are you going with?
I'm going to go with a jig, probably a half-ounce jig, some type of brown, with like a Zoom Z-Craw trailer. Going to dip it in a little bit of orange and idle around in some of those ditches out there and try and find them, on the bottom somewhere.
I tell you what, you impressed me. You're a very smart young man. So I know
well,
I know you know you're fishing. Let's get back to the college thing.
All right.
So we've established, somebody listening to this, that you've done your fishing, you've done your homework and all that, but you're still a 20-year-old kid. All right. So you're still young. So you're still in college. So let's go back there. How about your favorite memory from one of these tournaments that you fished? Favorite memory or favorite fish? You got anything like that?
I think my favorite memory of all the college tournaments I've fished so far has been on Lake Cherokee.
Okay. And where's that at?
It's up in, where's that at? It's up.
It was so good you didn't forget the state.
Yeah. Well, no, it's in Tennessee. I'm trying to think of the town it's near.
Right.
It's out in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
I think the closest town is I can look it up and tell you
That's
exactly.
fine. Listen, I wouldn't be able to find it anyway, but you can do that.
I'm going to no service here anyway, so.
No, you don't get no service in the sticks. Everybody knows that here.
Let's see.
Okay, well, what is it about this lake?
Well, anyway, it's a smallmouth lake.
Okay.
It is full of big boulders and rocks and stuff like that. And, that's one of the first places that I really learned how to do the Demiki fishing. And Demiki fishing is whenever you drop a bait down there, like on a rock or something like that, and you're catching those big smallmouth. And, that's just something I don't get to do a lot. And, it's.
Well, a lot of people in Georgia don't get the smallmouth.
Yeah.
So how about this? How about you describe the feel of a smallmouth compared to, say, a largemouth on your line? Because it is a little different.
Yeah. So smallmouth are just incredibly strong, and
Right.
they do not quit. So and they are like rockets whenever you hook one. They come out of the water jumping and thrashing, and it's all kinds of crazy whenever you hook one.
Have you ever fished Blue Ridge?
I have not fished Blue Ridge. It's one of the lakes that I have not fished.
They
in
still
Georgia.
have a few smallmouth. That's why I was asking, but I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
Go ahead.
that's fine. That's fine.
So what was it about the smallmouth though in them lakes?
I
on
think
that
it's
Cherokee?
just so different. It's something that it's one of those first tournaments that I got. I kind of branched out from what I knew, and it was just a really really cool learning experience.
Okay.
But another great tournament was on Seminole this past spring.
Okay.
We caught I think we caught about 18 pounds, and was doing something I never do, was flipping grass, and got in there and did that, and
Now, how'd you decide to do that though?
it was really just kind of instinctual. We did a bunch of other stuff and it wasn't working, so I was like, all right, well let's go flip a little grass and see what happens.
So what's next? And that worked like that. How about this? How about your worst, maybe not memory, or how about the worst mistake you've made, or something, your biggest lesson learned because of a mistake you made? We always talk about the good times.
So it's going to be on Cherokee again.
Okay.
The first day was really good, and we had a good sack of fish. We were in a good contention to do well. The second day, and this is something that comes from, just tournament experience and fishing 2-day tournaments and stuff like that, is, we didn't broaden our area enough and, follow that pattern around. And we ended up struggling on the second day. And I really took from that, that you have to go and be flexible and, to be a good tournament fisherman, you have to be able to do that. So
Right. Okay. How about this? You probably started fishing when you was about 4?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All the way to now you're 20. You're really old now.
Yeah.
So you got 16 years of experience under your belt. The most memorable fishing moment in your entire life.
All right, so there's 2.
Okay.
The first one that I remember, I think I was about 5 years old.
Okay.
Picked up my dad's bait caster. I'd never thrown a bait caster in my entire life. Okay, I still remember it vividly. It had a white half-ounce Nichols pulsator spinnerbait on there. I barely threw it out there about 15 feet, was winding it back in. I could barely hold the rod, and a 4.5-pound spot grabs it. It's the biggest fish I'd ever caught up to that point, and it was probably the fish that really got me hooked on fishing.
Okay.
And I mean, that thing about pulling me in the water, got it up in the boat, and I was just ecstatic.
I bet.
Uh-huh.
And so that's one of them.
That's one of them. The second is my PB I caught on Lake Chickamauga up in Tennessee. It was in the summer, I guess, last year, and caught it on a ledge out there. It was one of the first times that I had ever went ledge fishing, and it was a 10-pounder right on the nose. And was able to join a 10-pound club, and I can still remember whenever that fish came all the way out of the water. It jumped completely out of the water. And I still remember seeing those eyes out there. They're about as big as mine.
Right, absolutely.
So it was crazy.
Okay, you're talking about going pro, or you would like to.
I would love to.
Okay, so who's your favorite pro fisherman and why?
I really like Casey Ashley.
Okay, and tell everybody a little bit about him.
So Casey Ashley, he fishes Hartwell a lot. I think that's his home lake. I just can look at him and see some of the attributes of, the 2 fishermen, myself and him. And, I think I just can relate to him whenever he's out there on the trail.
I got you. Okay, so of all the professional tournaments, the trails and all that, which one do you like watching the best?
So this is probably I might offend some people. I like the Elite Series.
Okay, and why?
I like the 5 bass. I like catching 5 and bringing them to weigh in.
So you're still old school.
I am old school. I like it.
So you don't want to do any of the
I mean, I wouldn't turn it down if they gave me the invite, but
Right.
if I had a choice, I'd probably go the Elite Series.
And so you like the 5. Now, do you think? Well, let's just be straight up. Why do you think that way? I mean, what is it about bringing 5?
That's tournament fishing.
Okay.
In my mind, that is tournament fishing.
And
that's
that's
what I've grown up with. I think that's what everybody's grown up with. Now,
Right.
that might be a closed-minded thing to think, and it's not to say that, it's MLF or, catching one and weighing it's not cool.
Right.
But I like the 5, and I like, I love the Classic. I think that's a dream of mine to go and fish the Bassmaster Classic, and to go and fish the Bassmaster Classic, you have to go through the Elite Series.
That makes perfect sense. If you could change one thing about the Elite Series right now, what would you do?
It'd probably be entry fees. I think all professional trails should be no entry fee. I think it should be provided by I think it should be like the NFL, where the players don't have to pay, and you can go into it and win $1 million. I think I'd like to see the payouts increased, and they're working on that now. So who knows? In 20 years' time, who knows where it'll be.
So when you say no entry fees, are you saying that there will be in your mind, you're setting up a kind of a qualifying type thing, and only 100 guys qualify for this, and at that point, it's the best 100 of the world, or for that year, like that.
They get to fish it. Yep.
That's a pretty good idea. That's kind of novel. Now, if you told that to a Bass Elite exec or one of them right now, what would they do?
I think they'd probably laugh at me. but you got to dream big,
Absolutely. One of the things it takes to be a pro is sponsorship.
Yep.
Have you worked on any of that?
I have worked on some. Dugout Bait and Tackle is a big one of mine.
Shout out to them.
Yep, shout out to them. I know those guys really well. They help me out a lot. But all of our college sponsors are really, really important to us, and we're thankful for them. And we couldn't do it without them. So
absolutely. Now, is there opportunities to take those on in the future with you?
I think there is. I try to keep a good relationship with all of them, and it's. Honestly, we're really dependent on some of the smaller companies around us locally that support us. So,
okay. So, what is the one thing in college, apart from fishing, that you can learn and use in fishing?
I think it is focus.
Okay. Explain.
So, when you're in a classroom, you have to be able to focus. When you're on the water, you have to be able to focus. You have to be able to take out all the other distractions and just make your mind one track and look at what you're doing right there. And, that's something that I've gone and applied, from my fishing into the classroom with me. And, sometimes it's hard. When you're out there on the lake, you're worried about something, or you're worried about who's at the ramp waiting for you, or, something like that. So you got to be able to just kind of just take a step back, say, all right, this is what I'm doing, and, make sure you make it happen.
And what degree are you pursuing?
I'm pursuing professional sales.
Professional sales.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
So you're a salesman and a fisherman. And that probably is a pretty good marriage.
I think it is.
You're going to have to be a good salesman with those sponsors and everything like that. All right, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions.
All right.
Professional bass fisherman, you get to pick one that you want to fish against and just wear out. Who would it be?
I want to go against Kevin Van Dam.
Just because of the aura of him
the aura of glory around Van Dam. Yeah.
Right. So just beating the best.
I want to beat Van Dam. Yep.
You think he's the best that's ever lived right now?
That's a hard question.
Yeah.
I think he is, but I think Rick Clunn is also probably one of the best that's ever picked up a rod.
Right.
It's hard. If you just listen to what that guy says, it's incredible.
Yeah, the knowledge that all of them have like that. What is the one thing about Van Dam though that you admire the most? I
admire how much he knows. He can go out on the water and figure out what they're doing just real quick. And, sometimes whenever I'm out there, it's like, well, dang, what are they doing? I can't quite figure it out, but he already knows.
Right.
So that's where I'm trying to get. And, some of that is just instinctual, and some of it, you just learn from a lot of time on the water. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, well, Garrett, let me tell you this. First of all, I'll be straight up honest. I'm speaking to a guy via email or Facebook Messenger. Mm-hmm. I got this 20-year-old kid who, he tells me he's with Kennesaw, and you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
I say, come on down, let's do a podcast.
All
let's see what you got. You are probably one of the more intelligent guys I've had in this room.
Awesome.
Just your knowledge is very good. You're specific, you're focused, and I can tell that you take this very seriously. Mm-hmm. I think Kennesaw State should be very proud to have you, not only as a president, but on their team as a representative.
Well, thank you.
You do a very good job. You represent, your sponsors like Dugout, very well. And it's actually been an honor, and I've actually learned a few things listening to you.
Awesome.
I try to absorb something from everybody.
Well, thank you.
So what I'd like to do, maybe in a year's time after this season, let's have you come back. Let's talk about this season, see how it went for you and your teammates.
Awesome, yeah, absolutely.
Maybe by this time you come back, we'll have a couple more mics in here.
All right.
You can bring a couple of your buddies, and we can just talk about these lakes and just, the ups and downs, because I think it'd be very interesting for people to see, yeah, we did great here. We got our tails whipped here.
Yeah.
And I'd like to hear about the Bethels and all this and a little smack talking and stuff like that.
All right.
But I'm telling you what, kid, you seem to me like you got a bright future ahead of you, and I'm proud to get to know you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Fish North Georgia podcast. If y'all have any topics or guests you'd like to see in the future, leave it in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button, click that bell so that you'll be notified of any future videos. And don't forget to give us a follow on Facebook and Instagram at Fish North Georgia. And we look forward to seeing you soon.